Millennium Development Goal was not aimed as a very, very comprehensive, overarching goals. And also the Millennium Development Goals was only aimed for developing country and basically for the poor nations. And the thrust was very much on poverty eradication. So the Millennium Development Goals overall aspiration was less overarching, and it was basically only for developing country. It was not for developed countries. And also the I'll show you the goals, and you will see that the goals are nice, but very much poverty poverty oriented goals. Let me. Okay, now if you look at 8 goals there, these Millennium Development Goal had only 8 goals there, right? So the first was to eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. 2 was the universal primary education, gender equality and empowerment of women, reduce child mortality, improve maternal health, combat HIV, AIDS, and malaria and other disease, ensure environmental sustainability, global partnership for development. So still, of course, poverty was very much into the focus, during that time. Yes, education, poverty, some health, but still it was not overarching. And these were mainly aimed at poor countries and mainly aimed at developing country, right? So, if you look at the fundamental document, if you look at the slide here also, the fundamental commitment was the partnership to reduce extreme poverty, and in some other area, we have looked at. The deadline was 2015. Then learning from the experience of Millennium Development Goal, they were supposed to develop overarching, bigger targets, high-level goals and approaches for beyond 2015. So in a way, Millennium Development Goal help us galvanize, working collectively together to solve some of the bigger challenges that we are facing. But it was aimed at developing country only for the Millennium Development, right? So these 8 different, targets, goals were put there, and these were, in a way, you can say positively that these are good entry points to move into the new kind of target. For example, if you look at climate convention, right? Let's say in a climate convention, what I'm trying to see is the entry points. How do you enter? In the climate convention, first, there was a recognition that yes, world is getting warmer, climate change is happening, and climate change happened because the developed countries emitted lots of greenhouse gases historically. So developed country has a historical responsibility, right? That's why when the Kyoto Protocol was set, in UNFCCC there is something called principles. Common but differentiated responsibility. That's a buzzword in United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Common but differentiated responsibility. That means problem is common to all, but the responsibilities are differentiated. Since the developed countries created climate change because of the emission of the greenhouse gas emission after the Industrial Revolution, a lot of coal has been used, right? And the emission is high, so they will take more responsibility, and they will do first, take a leadership, and also they will support the developing country. So that was kind of logic. That's why in Kyoto Protocol, there was no any obligation for developing country, only obligation for developed countries in Kyoto Protocol. But now coming from Kyoto Protocol to Paris Agreement, scenario completely changed. Now in Paris Agreement, there is no distinction between developed country and developing country. Problem is common, everybody must work, everybody must reduce emission. But in Kyoto Protocol, only the developed country reduce emission. Developing country has no commitment. But in Paris Agreement, both, it's a kind of universal. We call that as a universal obligation, right? Universal. So developed country doing so now. But I'm trying to give you an example of the Millennium Development Goal. Now to enter into this basic gambit of the sustainability and sustainable development, the more pressing issue was the developing country, especially poor country, where child mortality is a problem, where access to education is a problem, where even the primary education is a problem, and the country were suffering with a disease such as HIV, AIDS, and the malaria, right? So how to support, how to help this country? So that was a starting point for sustainable development agenda. Then after learning from some experience in 2015, then we have a bigger agenda. Then we have a bigger agenda of, SDG. Now, SDG is much more bigger, much more overarching than the Millennium Development Goal, which you see here. These 8 goals were nice, but that was still limited, right? That doesn't go too far to our quest for sustainability or sustainable development. But this was very good start. That again help us galvanize, work together, develop partnership, and also put our effort. So it was evaluated. There is an evaluation of MDG, and based on the lessons and experience of the MDG, SDG was developed. But the SDG is much more overarching, as I said, and also it's more universal. SDGs are for developed country, also for developing country, right? But of course, in every country, in terms of targets, there could be some differences, but it's kind of universal goal.